So behind every AI response, there's an invisible army of humans who trained it, labeling images, rating answers, and teaching these models right from wrong. Today, we're going to talk to Caspar Eliot from the company that's trained 80% of the world's top AI models. So, welcome humans to the latest episode of the Neuron Podcast. I'm Corey Knowles, and we're joined as always by Grant Harvey, writer of the Neuron Daily AI newsletter. And today we're diving deep into the human side of AI with Caspar Eliot from Invisible Technologies. Caspar, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Caspar, Invisible Technologies just raised $100 million. Invisible also says it has trained 80% of the world's top AI models. Both of those are incredible stats. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what that process actually looks like?
The way I think of it is, so large language models they're not like traditional machine learning, right? They're non-deterministic. They're based on neural nets. They do some funky things. I think of a large language model like an enthusiastic teenager. Yeah. It really wants to answer questions, but it wants to get smart. But if you want a teenager to learn something, like there are some ways you can teach them, right? You could, for example, you could take them to a library, or you could give them a load of homework, or you could set them a test. We kind of do all those three things. When you hear supervised fine-tuning or reinforcement learning via human feedback or evaluations, that's actually one of those three things. So supervised fine-tuning is giving a model loads of real high-quality examples of data sets to look like. That's taking your model to the library and saying, here's some textbooks to read. It's going to read the textbooks. They'll tell you what's true. Reinforcement learning is, okay, you're going to give the model some questions. It'll give some answers, and you're going to say if those answers are good or not. Like, you might ask the model to write me a poem about Russia. And then you'll check that poem, and you'll have something about what if that poem is good or bad, and you'll give it a grade.
Yeah.
And it'll learn from that. And so that's reinforcement learning, or you can call it reward modeling. You're basically allowing you to change the way you reward your model for different types of answers.
Mm-hmm.
And then evaluation is building the test the model has to take to understand if it's good, because companies will release loads of different versions of models, and they've got to understand if it's better or worse. Like, I mean, you've seen the news about ChatGPT 5, GPT-5, they released it. It was obviously better in some metrics, but the audience wasn't happy. And that's why human evaluation is so necessary, because people are non-deterministic too. People like to have opinions on things, and you can't just be like, well, this was better on all our benchmarks. If it feels different to someone and the user doesn't like it, it doesn't matter if it's better. And that's evaluation. So we're the teachers behind the models.
I think a lot of people believe that all that's happening is AI is scooping up the internet and just training itself on all of that, and then it just magically works. Can you elaborate a little bit on how that happens as far as, like, a little more technically?
Have you met the internet? Like, if AI is learning off the internet, like, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, a model is gonna look at its huge data set, and then you're gonna have an impossibly large set of hyperparameters that you're gonna configure to try and understand what the best next token to predict is based upon the data it's looked at. But ultimately, you've either got to improve the underlying data set, which is hard. Like, the data sets are huge. Data sets are petabytes of information. Or you've got to do what's called post-training, where you use sort of smaller sets of data to improve the weightings. Like, for clarity, by the way, I am not an ML scientist, so I'm going to say some things, and there'll be listeners being like, "This guy's a charlatan." So, just for clarity, before I get flamed, I'm giving some vibes here rather than the exact science. And then, I think the evaluations piece is so key. Like, there's all these different models, and in lots of ways, like, if you go to ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and you ask it a reasonably simple question, it's going to give you the right answer pretty much.
Yeah.
Or if you give it a complex, subjective question, it's going to give you some different answers. But how the hell do you decide which is better? That's where evaluation is so critical. I think Andre Carpenter.
Someone has to read.
Well, Andre Carpenter had a tweet about 6 months ago where he said, like, the entire AI is just an evaluation problem now.
Yeah.
Because it's like the models are getting so complex that understanding what better means, they're not linearly better. You might get an improvement in, say, let's imagine you get an improvement in creativity, but that also makes it more verbose and more likely to hallucinate. Is it better? You might be more creative, which is great. It's what you're after, but then it's making stuff up.
When people use ChatGPT or Claude, they have no idea that there are humans in the background who have labeled millions of training images, right? rated
Yeah.
response quality, as you were saying with human feedback, fine-tuned models through
Yeah.
RLHF, and even red teamed them to find out
Yeah.
biases, right? Like, so all of that goes into this process, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, correct?
I mean, AI is not magic. People think like it's one of the biggest problems. People think AI is not magic. AI is just better predictive text. Like it's very good predictive text, but fundamentally, it's if you go into your phone and you go into WhatsApp and you type a word and you keep pressing next word, that's predictive text too. It's just not as good because
Right.
it's based on a much simpler model. Like all AI is trying to do is find the next character or the next pixel or whatever. It has no concept of truth. It has no concept of anything. And so these are just various different mechanisms to make it better at finding the next token. And that could be because you've given it a load of labeled data, which is making it be rewarded for certain behaviors, or you've given it loads of information, which is making it be punished for certain behaviors. So red teaming is exactly that. You're trying to find, the model has used racist language, or the model has exhibited some bias, or the model has used a false source. Like for simple things, like a model is going to be looking in its underlying data set for reference data. And there was some stat that came out that said 40-something% of all the references the model is using is Reddit.
Wow.
Like at a
I
certain, I
saw
mean,
that. Yeah, that was
yeah.
recent, huh? Yeah.
And like at a certain point, they're going to have like, is Reddit the best source of truth? Someone like Perplexity is going to have a very high weighting for certain sites it's using for citation because they're the ones that it trusts. And that is going to come from a set of decisions that someone is making around which sites to trust. And that will be because there'll be a set of hyperparameters which say, oh, Bloomberg, Reuters, like focus on those above Reddit or whatever random forum someone's saying something.
You're essentially butting up against like Arthur C. Clarke's third law that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And to the average person, like, I always joke that when you work with someone who hasn't spent time with this and you show them something that really impresses them,
This,
it's just like you pulled a quarter out of your ear.
I'm fairly sure that the GPT-3 model was not that much better than the GPT-2 model. The difference was the longer context window and the application that allowed it to be conversational.
Mhm.
That's what made it magic. That's what made your grandmother go, oh my, I'm talking to the computer.
Yeah.
And it's answering back coherently. The model itself, like, this is where I think people get so confused. Like, no one ever interacts with the model. They interact with an application layer on top of a model.
Yeah.
They interact with a product. Claude is a product. Gemini is a product. And ChatGPT is a product. So you're improving the model. But often a lot of what we're doing as well now is helping give information to improve the product as well as the base model.
You know how AI coding agents feel fast until you're stuck fixing their code and realize it would have been quicker to just do it yourself? Warp changes that. It's an agentic development environment, a new kind of tool that makes working with coding agents effortless. Warp connects to your code base, understands your context, and uses the best models from GPT-5 to Claude Sonnet 4.5 to generate production-ready code from the jump. And when you do need to step in, Warp's built-in code review and editing tools make it seamless. You can see diffs, reprompt, or make quick changes right alongside the agent. No tool switching, no wasted time. That's why over 700,000 engineers from companies like Netflix, Ramp, and Amazon are already using Warp to save hours each week. So if you're ready to go from prompt to production faster, check it out at Warp.dev. I keep seeing I like to play around with open source models quite a bit, and one of the
Yeah.
things I'm running across is an increasing number of small models boasting about how they're trained on high quality data versus
Yeah.
versus the Reddits and 4chans of the world. I mean,
Yeah.
not that there isn't absolutely good value to be pulled from a Reddit because there's a lot of firsthand experience on there, but there's also a lot of toxic garbage.
People talk about the toxic garbage and like that, there's not much of that either. There's just loads of irrelevant stuff. There's
Mm.
just petabytes and petabytes of dross or random stuff that is adding no benefit. So it's just weight.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's cost, that's inference cost, that's all these things. So there is honestly the open source thing, a lot of it is a cost play and a performance play. Like, because if you just have less data and fewer hyperparameters, your model is more efficient and easier to interact with and easier to adjust as you need it. But then the problem is that maybe sometimes, because it's easier to adjust, you can adjust it in ways you don't expect. One of the I was having this conversation with someone last week who was like, why are they called researchers at these organizations? And it's because, like, why are they not called engineers? It's because they are researchers. This is pure scientific research. Like, you make a hypothesis and you test it. Like, loads of the stuff people don't know about. They're exploring. They're like, AI agents have been the hot topic of 2025. We only really started to work out how the hell to use them in January. Like, this is new,
That's
and
true.
it's really like experimental.
Yeah.
So people are like discovering, like, this is why the whole DeepSeek R1 thing came out that was very exciting, because they discovered a new way to use reward modeling data much more efficiently. And that had a massive potential impact in the way you can train. I mean, distillation means that, like, it's a lot easier to pull stuff that already exists and make it easier rather than to do new stuff. But like, it's new, it's discovery. I think it's why it's so exciting. It's like there hasn't been a scientific field that has felt so relevant and current for a long time.
I think that's a really fair assessment. You know, the amount of new research coming out and new ideas every day right now out of these labs is just insane. It's a constant flow of research.
Corey, it's so tiring. Let me tell you, it's
It
so,
is.
because you're just like, oh, should I read this paper? Is this important? Do I need to kind of, and actually, I will say, like, this is where people talk about an AI bubble. Like, my personal perspective, you could pause model development today, and the consumer wouldn't notice for 5 years, because it's about the app layer. It's the piece that sits on top. There's so much to be done there. So, like, we will see slowdowns in, like, we won't get these massive jumps forward because we've done some of the easier bits, but there'll be underlying things around infrastructure, around how we make calls, like, that will be really exciting, that will actually make a huge impact. So, I mean, tokens have already plummeted in cost. So,
Yeah.
like, cost is barely a concern, but it could be speed. I mean, as soon as someone gets something that is of a performance equivalence to 4.0 or something that you put on your phone and store locally, that has a huge change for privacy.
Yeah.
Has a huge change for data security, because suddenly you don't need the internet. You can be out in the wilderness. You can be not wanting to share your data with whoever your cloud provider. Like, there's a whole set of interesting outcomes there as well.
Oh, yeah. You know, I saw someone, and it was, I can't remember who last night on Twitter mentioned that, you know, I mean, we haven't even really talked yet about integrating this into text messaging, which seems to make so much sense, and nobody's working on it.
Or email. Like, no one has changed email. Email is still this awful system where you, like, oh, I've got to go up this chain. It's this long string of text. Someone's replied all somewhere else.
I want an email
I
system where
hate
I
it.
never have to go to Gmail. That's what I want. I want an email system that just tells
And I'm
me
sure
what to
Gmail,
do.
I'm sure Google is stressed about that.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, the flip side, and I think this is going to be interesting, is, like, people aren't fully rational actors in ways that is useful for self-preservation and things. People are going to be like, I don't want this to change how I approach my email. I don't want this to change how I like, I don't want, I mean, okay, how many times have you been writing an email and you just press tab to end the sentence on Gmail?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like,
I
in
hardly ever,
short
because I'm like, I
emails,
want to write
yeah.
the stuff. I want to write it
Yeah.
myself. Like,
Yeah. You mentioned a minute ago, you mentioned that, like, you think that there's a lot of value in the application layer. And, you know, as someone who's training these models, working on this, do you then see the future being, like, more so around smaller, more niche models? Like, do you see that being more of where we're going to get a lot of the performance gains in the models?
you're still going to get huge trillion-dollar companies spending a lot of money on their base models, because their base models are behind the application layer, and they're going to be
Right.
behind a load of other companies' application layers.
Let's pivot back to Invisible, because I know that you work with a lot of companies, and I want to know a little bit more about how it works when you work with a company. For instance, there's, like, the Frontier Labs, but there's also, like, let's say, you know, in your recent fundraising video, you had an example with the Charlotte Hornets came up. And how would you work with a company like that with your process? If you could walk us through, like, how that works.
One of the funny things about Invisible is, like, I've been here 3.5 years. When I joined, like, I mean, AI didn't exist, you could maybe say, but, like, I mean, we did nothing in human data. And
Yeah.
we started working in human data relatively soon after that, and started working with a couple of very, very marquee clients. But we were historically a company where our goal was to find the complex processes that clients had and orchestrate them on their behalf. Like be the invisible layer that
Mm.
powers these businesses, often not in the stuff that they want to be doing, but the stuff that they have to be doing. Like no one builds a business to have a finance department. No one sets up a company to be like, I really, really want to have a huge and expensive operations team. Like, how can we take those pieces and help them execute them more efficiently? And historically, it was all about the fusion between humans and technology. And we were saying, we're not a BPO, business process outsourcing, where you just say, I'm going to take my work, I'm going to outsource it to 100 cheaper people, they're going to do it. That has its benefits because people are creative and flexible, and people scale very, very poorly. And
Mm.
then we're also not a pure tech player around remote process automation, because historically, yes, if you've got a very, very well-defined straight line process, you can automate that using historic like companies like UiPath and Automation Anywhere and Blue Prism. And then as soon as you get something that's slightly out of that, it breaks.
Mm.
Our thesis was always a combination of the two gives you the best flexible, evolving, able to work in a complex environment outcome. That was actually how we got into human data, because we were talking to these people and they were like, well, we've got this process, we're trying to scale this complex workflow to produce conversational data. And we're like, well, that sounds like a process. We're really good at that.
Yeah.
And we were really good at that. And we kept getting really good at that. And we kept doing more and more of it because it was by just approaching the kind of boring problem that they don't want to have to solve, but they have to, and solving it on their behalf.
So as part of that, what did the humans do in that process versus what's automated? Like,
In human data or in...
yeah, or I guess like you have quite a few different services that you offer, right?
Yeah.
Like you have like the Neuron Data Platform, no relation to us. I thought that was funny
Yeah.
though. The Atomic Process Builder, the Axon Agentic Platform. There's a lot of cool services that you offer. So I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Well,
Yeah.
So if I just go forward to someone like the Charlotte Hornets, we come in and we want to be asking, what are the problems that we can solve for you? What are the things that you either you don't want to have to deal with, or what are some things that you've never even thought were possible, but actually because of the advances of technology are now possible? And a great example of this, like, so talking to the Charlotte Hornets, they were like, I mean, we love to ask this question, like, if you suddenly had 1 million entry-level employees, what problem wouldn't exist? Or what would you try and
Mm.
solve? And with the Charlotte Hornets, they were thinking, well, like, it'd be really cool if we could just watch every game of basketball in the US to assess players. And obviously, like, I mean, it's probably an inefficient use of their funds to hire 100,000 scouts. But now with, I mean, maybe I've just revolutionized basketball. Maybe they'll be like, this is the move. We just hire 100,000 scouts. But I doubt it. But instead, we were like, okay, well, we can get a video camera in these places. And actually, computer vision models are now much more advanced that we can start to pull out way more relevant data from these games. And we can start to pull out patterns, and we can start to pull out sort of recognitions about the movements people make or the shapes people form. And suddenly, you've effectively got a scout in every game.
And the amount of data that these sports nerds will have to eat up for the next century will be absolutely amazing. I always think of the sabermetrics community in baseball where they're like, here's how you do against lefties when the sun's out and the wind's coming in from
Yeah.
the east
Well,
and, on a Thursday.
exactly, because basically, historically, and this is why sabermetrics was such an interesting thing, is because baseball is a very statistics heavy game, because that's like lots of these things are measurable. But now things that were historically viewed as unmeasurable because they were unstructured data, you can actually analyze more effectively, which is, I mean, that's what language models and other models do. They take unstructured data and do interesting potential stuff with it. Not guaranteed. It could be complete dross.
Yeah.
But they give you the ability to interrogate it more effectively. Like, just think conceptually, a large language model reading Tolstoy is the same as a video model watching the Charlotte Hornets. It's able to take that unstructured information and bring some sense from it in a way that was never previously possible. It's two things. You asked your question, Grant, about the modules. Like, we're not coming in there and pitching modules. We're not saying, buy our tools, buy our widgets. These are our tools in our tool belt. But our job is to come in there and be like, do you need a screwdriver? Do you need a hammer? Do you need a monkey wrench? What is your problem? And often it'll be a combination. And what's really interesting, I think this is really what differentiates ourselves, is the people we have as well are such an incredible factor in enabling those tools to be more effective. For example, like, okay, everyone wants it to be step 1, have problems. Step 2, talk about AI agents. Step 3, magic happens. You deploy an AI agent. How do you know if it's doing a good job?
You have to evaluate it.
Okay, and how do you get an evaluation? You need to understand what the measures of a task being performed acceptably and accurately are. And
Yeah.
often the best way to get those is to do the task a lot.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what our people can do, is they can actually perform this work and we can start to build up the evaluative sort of set of metrics to then deploy an agent effectively. Because candidly, if a company is going in and saying, I'll deploy AI agents, it'll all be tech. Either they're saying, hey, client, you need to do a hell of a lot of work for us, or, hey, we are YOLOing this completely. And neither of those is particularly compelling for an enterprise.
No, it's really hard to prove the ROI on that. It's hard to everything about it's difficult to sell.
And because we are not, like, we price on outcomes, we price on unit bases, etc. We aren't saying, oh yeah, we'll bring our people in and you'll pay hourly and we'll just do this forever because it's a wonderful business model for us. We're saying our people are going to come in and they're going to work over the course of this project to make themselves obsolete in this case.
Yeah.
Or they're going to be like, actually, this piece is so subjective and so complex and so strange that actually you need people. And that's going to be the best way to live quality, because like, we are not there. We're there to deliver the outcome, not the mechanism for the outcome. We're not there to sell a certain way of doing something. We're there to just deliver the outcome invisibly.
And then, so is this technically, so you might have been following the debate about the RL environments, or just like vibe evaluating. I don't know if you followed that on Twitter or not.
Yeah.
Are you technically doing RL environments then as you do part of your process here? Or?
We're exploring them because there are situations where they're very valuable because they basically allow you to create realistic data sets or create realistic evaluative scenarios. Like, you need that. Like, if someone's saying, I want to build a set of agents to do something in a certain SaaS platform, having an example of that SaaS platform you can mess around in is very, very necessary. In the same way that if you're training someone to use a system, you give them a training environment.
Let's shift gears a bit here. I want to kind of talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to data in the AI industry. Roughly 5 years ago, data labeling was this unglamorous corner of the internet, and now you cannot have a discussion around AI without someone wanting to discuss the need for data hygiene, for data labeling, for better data practices, and people are suddenly realizing what a just god-awful mess their data is across their company, and it's become, quite a roadblock.
We've always tried to do what we were good at, which was the complex work. We very much focused on the cutting edge stuff, bringing in multilingual, bringing in multimodal, bringing in STEM, all these like dimensions of complexity, trajectories work for agents, etc. Because that's where we excel around complex data. Like, we weren't involved 5 years ago when it was much more simple. Like, we came in at the complex end because existing vendors weren't meeting the need, and we met the need, and we continue to meet the need. So that's really our world.
Okay, that deal happened. And it impacted the industry. Now we see a lot of headlines about, competitors popping up, and I think people are now finally seeing the value of it. So do you think that the type of work that you do is now incredibly important to like these big frontier labs, to the point where it's a strategic asset for them?
Or
Like,
that
to the
people
point
are
where
noticing finally that it is, and it always
finally giving you the credit where it's due,
I think 100%. I think 100. I think the need is growing, not shrinking. Like, we're not going to complete data. Like, we're not.
Yeah.
There's always more data.
I also, and I'm also much more of a superintelligence bear than lots of other people, because this is just better predictive text. It's better and better and better and better. And maybe there'll be something when we hit the right number of sort of node equivalents, like the number of neurons in the human brain, and suddenly there'll be magic. I can't predict that, but I don't know. I'm not betting on it as much. There'll need to be other structural advances that I'm very much not qualified to even understand, let alone talk about, to get to
relatable
AGI. Like it's revealing that the people talking about AGI are the ones very, very incentivized to talk about AGI.
Sure. Makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
so I think we are going to see more of a data need because people are going to try and make incremental improvements for competition, and also we're going to start to see more like second level users, like not the
Hmm.
foundation model builders, but the people who are building complex products in the healthcare space, in the financial space, whatever, using agents, using models, who still have a need for trajectory data, for evaluative data, for data for reward modeling, for improving whatever, like be it multilingual. Like, I mean, think about it. Like lots of these models are very, very good at English because they're trained on a predominantly English data set.
Mm.
And then they're decent at other languages. But there are a lot of other languages that, like, I mean, there are 7 or 8 languages in India with 100 million speakers.
Yes.
That's a lot of potential
Yeah.
consumers. Like, so there's a huge demand in these different places.
With their own literature, with their own
with their own literature, with their own quirks and things.
Yeah.
Like, there's a huge amount of stuff that can be done there. And also, as training costs go down, maybe then you could start doing like just because of like, I don't know, this isn't exactly an example of Jevons paradox, but like it's just because something like becomes easier doesn't mean people use less of it.
So how do you feel like the skill level has for this type of work has evolved over the
Oh.
years, and what do you think that means for the economics of like AI training?
Oh, it's massively, massively gone up. Like when we were starting, you were taking sort of people who were intelligent and spoke good English, but like generalists. Like, and there is still a role for generalists, but in so many, like, think about it. You want to make your model better at quantum physics? You're gonna hire a generalist.
No.
You want to make your model better at Swiss German? You're going to hire a generalist. Now you've got to find someone who speaks Swiss German. You want to make your model Swiss German in quantum physics? Like like the complexity is only going to increase. And then you start to bring in modes. There are different skill sets. Like audio transcription is a skill set. Some people are very good at it. Some people are awful. Like video analysis is like there's all these different skill sets, and you're getting people who are very, very good at certain things. And there's a demand. And I mean, you don't need to be a PhD in economics to understand that when there's high demand and there's like obviously some degree of limited supply, costs are going to go up.
Yeah.
And that's reasonable. And we're seeing that. Like, I mean, we have examples where we have nurses and healthcare professionals working on behalf of clients. We have
Nice.
litigators working on behalf of clients. Like
Mm.
there's lots of complexity there. And like people who have the qualifications aren't cheap.
Yeah.
Now, there is also this is where you get to a very interesting point. Like, are these people build, like, are they creating their own demise? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think they are. I think in lots of situations, just the evaluative nature of some of these tasks is going to mean that there's going to be a value of human oversight.
Yeah.
And then I think one thing that I'm really interested in, like, you read about like entry level jobs going down in like certain industries because of AI, etc. Who do people think are going to do the leadership jobs in 20 years' time?
Yeah, that matters.
Like, and I think society, like, this is where also people, like, I think there's going to be surprising human reactions to certain things. Then there might be a premium on human contact and human engagement. Like, I just don't. I think people are saying we're going to have 99% unemployment. Haven't engaged with like how humans work. Like, it's like Luddism was very fashionable in the 1830s, but we got beyond the mills.
Yeah, and it could come in the form of just KPIs that are 10x what they were at the same hours.
Or it could, I mean, we might end up with a 3-day work week. Or
Yeah.
like, I'd love that. But
Oh,
like,
I've seen headlines of that recently.
yeah, like, no, I've seen that as well, because like there is a very utopia, and like, and ultimately, like, these are complex, and the incentive drivers are going to lead to all sorts of unexpected impacts. But I think anyone who's saying AI will be 100% utopian is naive. Anyone who's saying AI will be 100% dystopian is naive.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
it's going to
Couldn't
be
agree more.
complex. It involves
Yeah.
people. People are mental. Have you met people?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
it's the same thing, isn't it? But I don't think we'll get to the situation where we'll be like, no lawyers exist.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I say this kind of tongue in cheek, but the other alternative, which I think you're saying isn't going to happen, is that the only job in the future will be training AI models.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there was one of the funniest things I've read, and this was a delightful example of selective hubris. Was, I think it was Mark Andreessen saying that, like, I think every job will be automated except for VC. And I'm like, oh, come on. like,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're on
I
our
mean,
side of the
just that,
fence too over here. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's the lack of self-awareness. Like, I think some aspects of lots of jobs will become more efficient. I think there'll be some jobs which massively decrease in their value because they can be functionally automated. But then the question is, was the job adding value, and is that actually necessarily a problem?
Yeah.
Like, are
Mm.
we frustrated? Like, are we frustrated that we don't like hand pick crops? Like these things are complex. I don't know. I'm kind of meandering in a very confused way, and you're like, get this guy off. He's
No,
gone
No,
nuts.
no, 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 no. That's fair. Or like I was thinking something that you said right before that about what did you say right before that? The before the crops part?
It's something very erudite. Mark Andreessen.
Mark
Oh,
Andreessen.
Mark Andreessen.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Right. Oh yeah, VC being automated.
No,
Um
not being automated. That was the one thing he was
Yeah.
like, every other job apart from VC.
Every other job
Yeah,
except
I
mine.
think I think you know what it is? I think it's okay, there's two parts to this. I think there's, number one is like everyone can see the flaws in the AI for their particular skill set. It's sort of like when you read the news in your industry and you like know what they get wrong versus what they get
Yeah.
right. But then you read the news in another industry and you're like, "Oh, it sounds like like you just kind of take it
You
at
believe
face
everything
value."
they say on that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you wait the classic example of oh, I can't. What's it called? Where Dunning Kruger, right? Where you
Yes,
don't
yes.
understand another industry, you'll be like, that's clearly easy. It's all gone. But my industry is really hard.
Yes, exactly. But then I think there's the other component to it, which is people will always want to work with other people. Like when you get to a certain level of success, you're going to want people to offload stuff to, or like partners to work with, bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, and
I don't
this
think
is where
that's
like
ever going to go away.
yeah,
Go ahead.
people are like people aren't like people don't work in the pursuit of 100% efficiency.
No.
Everyone does inefficient things all day, every day for reasons of being human. And I think that's glorious and wonderful. It should be celebrated. And that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%.
maybe
100% efficiency would be hell.
yeah, it's like boring. Yeah, exactly.
So then getting back to data for a second here, if data is critical and expensive, are we heading towards a world where access to high quality training data becomes the biggest moat? Like, what's your take on that?
This is where AI as a research driven sort of topic is very interesting. Like, you publish a paper, someone can then understand the paper. So maybe if the data is the only secret source remaining, then I think it becomes very valuable. And yeah, I think that is the case. And like companies very closely guard their data environments. Like you've got to there's a lot going on there. But yeah, I suspect it will. I suspect it will if it starts to mean the difference between 90% accuracy. And if that's your only difference, then that is your moat.
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
that being the case. And again, to the point, that's where demand and supply, we're going to see an even greater increase in the value of this.
Where do you see this industry in, say, 5 years? Will every major company need these types of services? Will the tools eventually automate themselves a bit? What do you see as kind of a little farther down the road?
5 years ago, if someone would say, yeah, this company you've never heard of is going to release a product called ChatGPT and it's going to be the fastest growing thing in human history, what would you be like? Yep, I'll buy that. Like, I think this, and this is actually one of the biggest challenges again, and it's partly in human nature. Like, I think the speed of change in certain aspects is incredibly rapid and therefore intimidating,
Mhm.
and people will struggle to adjust. But then the flip side of that, and this is where I think, and okay, I'm going to make one prediction. I think we're going to start to see much more model impact on a physical sense, like autonomous vehicles,
Yeah.
robots, etc. Because this
Totally.
last 3.5 years has been almost exclusively digital.
Mhm.
And digital is huge. I mean, we're talking in real time across on some recording software, and you're in the west coast of the US, and I'm in London. If you said that 40 years ago, they'd been like, "This is witchcraft."
They would have.
So it matters, but I think as we start to see agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, that's going to have very big impact.
Yeah.
Because I think the ability of models to handle real world situations is going to increase. Like You see those sort of bottom dynamics things. It was humanoid robots, etc. They're getting very, very, very smart.
Mhm.
Waymo, etc. Waze, etc. All those kind
And
of things.
cheaper.
So yeah, exactly. And that's going to be very. I mean, yeah, not again. It's not magic.
Yeah,
Like I think a certain CEO of a large automotive company has been predicting self-driving cars for the last 15 years and not delivered anything. So
that's fair.
it's not magic, but I think we will see that, and I think that's going to be a bigger driver because that'll also feel bigger. I think because there are people, there are lots of people out there for whom AI is something happening to someone else, and it
Yes.
hasn't affected
Mm.
them.
Most people
Mhm.
probably.
No, exactly,
Especially
exactly.
in
Like
physical industries, like you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so that it's something that we talked about a lot in the company. It's like it's so easy to be sat there being like, "Oh my god, I haven't read this thing that came out last week. I'm so behind." Meanwhile, 99.2% of the world is like, "Sorry, what's ChatGPT?"
So
Maybe not quite
true.
that,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
it's so easy to look up and think you're behind and realize that everyone else is there. And I think that's what's happened, and that's why for other people it's this hype and it's a bubble. I think it's a bubble, but it doesn't mean it's not important.
Yeah.
And not
Exactly.
transformational.
100%.
Like, I mean, yeah, the dot-com bubble, you can't be like the internet, what was that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like, it didn't
Yeah.
disappear. Yeah, to be
Yeah,
clear.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
exactly. The underlying fundamentals are valuable, even if there's hype and there's overvaluation and there's all sorts of things, which
Yeah.
there 100% is.
Yeah, and there always is in tech, honestly. I mean, anytime you're
Mm.
dealing with disruptive industries, the money floods in.
Yeah.
And uh, some of them, the industry catches up with it. Some of them it doesn't. I mean, you can look back at companies like I'm gonna throw Amazon under the bus as a famously unprofitable company that just hemorrhaged money for 2 decades. And
Yeah,
All the
Amazon,
way to the
Google,
top.
like, yeah.
it's really interesting to see how it all plays out, but I really agree with you about, um, we're going to see them more in the physical world. I've just in the last few weeks, I've noticed suddenly, I'm running into this little robot at the local Quick Trip every day. It's now roaming around the store, and it's got little eyes, and it flashes, and it talks to you when you go by. We've got one doing inventory, walking around the store at the grocery store, and I'm like, "Man, we're not far from, like, those Unitree models and stuff like that being just
Yeah.
everywhere."
But then also, what's the human reaction going to be to them? It's going to be very interesting.
It is.
Like it's the analogy I made at the start around models being like a teenager. It shows that the models don't behave as you expect,
Yeah,
but it also reminds you that people don't behave as you expect. I think that's going to be
Yeah.
the two things that are going to be very, very interesting.
that's so
Yeah, we
true.
just wrote about Waymo and how the Waymo safety data is actually really, really impressive when you look at it, especially when you compare it to human drivers. Now, there's caveats in there, but I think one of the biggest things will be public opinion on Waymos because you'll read stories where people like, oh, I don't like that they idle in front of my driveway, or I don't like that they make
Yeah,
this loud beeping
it's a
noise.
different thing. You just need the first trolley problem S scenario where the model has to make a decision and there's a big court case, and then who knows what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
yeah, people don't perform it like we ran something, God, 3 years ago, where we were pulling data from a website and having to validate if it was a real location. And
Mm.
we had people doing it, and they were doing it with a certain accuracy, and we got a model to do it, and he did it with a higher accuracy. But when the model got it wrong, he got it wrong in weird ways.
Yeah.
And the
Mm.
client didn't like it because if you're like, oh, 95% I say the correct location, and the other 5% of the time I say a different wrong location, and instead it's 99% you say the correct location, and 1% of the time you say banana, people are going to be like, oh, that's much worse.
Yeah.
Even
Oh,
though,
there was a study that just came out about this. A Harvard
yeah,
business study that basically said people blame robots more. Like they
yeah,
when robots are at fault, people really don't
yeah.
like it. Like they're
Because,
way
Yeah.
more
because
likely to call
people
them.
are empathetic and people understand human mistake. Like it's people, man. They're the fascinating thing about all this.
Same thing with
Yeah.
cars right now. Every time an autonomous car is involved in a wreck right now, it's global news. And the fact
Yeah.
is, like, the numbers you ran this morning, Grant, are like, they're 94% safer than a human driver. And it's like we need some perspective here. I think it's important to understand that, some of that stuff we're very fallible.
We'll be in a world and in like, I don't know, let's call it 50 years time, people, they'll be like, wow, you drove places? That's insane. Like,
You drove yourself? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, and who knows? Like, but I just think, yeah, prediction is so hard because we're dealing with just, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just a coward. But
Well, because you're maybe like more hands off, you're less likely to jump on the bandwagon of like a car, or what do you mean by that, coward, in this
as in,
case?
like, I maybe I'm not making predictions, being a coward. That's what I mean.
Oh,
Like,
gotcha. I thought you meant you're like, yeah, I won't get into Waymo.
Yeah.
oh no, I mean, no, I'd be very curious too, but I can also understand the discomfort.
Yeah, same.
Right. Yeah.
Same,
Although,
like,
I mean,
if
yeah,
you're a
like,
person who needs control.
yeah, or you enjoy, like, I don't know, like, it's just these, and I think that's what's really interesting is you also get in, like, a lot of these become philosophical discussions.
Yeah.
It's not like, because it's not about what's best in like a strictly rational sense. It's about desires and needs and all these things.
That's right.
Totally. Well, I mean, from a data perspective or like training perspective, I mean, is it harder to train? It must be harder to train robots and self-driving cars and the physical side of things, right?
Oh,
Like
I
how
think
it's
100%. Like, I mean, candidly, we haven't done much yet in the physical AI space. I mean, I don't understand enough about the models they're using to actually know
it's
why.
still
But I can
so
imagine,
new. Yeah.
yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine there's going to be all sorts of complexities around like unexpected events because you're always training for edge cases, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
always training, like if the car's driving from A in a straight line to B and there's no traffic and like it's easy, it's gonna be great. But it's when someone does something unexpected
Mhm.
or there's suddenly a person or whatever, then you've got to build the data set in order for the model to behave in the way that you want it to, for performance reasons, for legal reasons, for whatever. And again, that's a challenge, I think. Like, model usage in heavily regulated industries is going to be a big challenge because
Yeah.
there's going to be concepts of liability. Like, and that's why, again, human oversight, like, it might be inefficient, but it'll be the kind of thing that where there's legal robustness to it, so people are comfortable with it. Otherwise, you're like, oh yeah, I made this medical decision based on what a non-deterministic model told me, and like, who's liable if something goes wrong?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
That's a
great
huge
question.
unsolved problem, I feel like. Yeah.
It's a problem we still haven't solved from the internet yet. Like, it's continued to be a problem for a lot of years, and, it's a good question. If you own it, if you build it, who's the
Is
Who's
it the
fall guy?
owner,
liable?
operator? Is it the person who designed it? Like, it's people like, yeah, people want to sue someone.
Is it me taking a nap in the back seat, while we're
Yeah, I
driving through
like,
the city?
and then if that's the, like, just imagine as soon as that's the case, then suddenly self-driving cars, like, they're not dead because they're not dead. Like, it's not a sort of binary thing, but
Yeah.
like suddenly they can't self-drive. Like, these are interesting because ultimately law is not an absolute thing. It's going to be a people thing where people are making arguments, and it'll come down to public opinion to a degree. Like, and that's why this thing will also shift, I would suspect. So if people see value and they feel more comfortable with it, then it shifts and evolves. But it takes time to evolve.
Yeah.
Like people are slow to adjust. I think that's what's going to be interesting as well, is seeing people who, like, just in the same way that someone who grew up who was born in like the mid-90s is way better at the internet, and someone who was born in the mid-noughties is way better at using a smartphone. Someone who was born in the mid-2010s is going to be unbelievable at prompt engineering.
Yeah, by the
Totally.
time they're in high school, I would say,
Yeah.
at the latest,
Yeah.
if not, their education system is a problem. Um,
But it won't be the education system will be slow to catch up. They always
oh, yeah.
are.
Yeah.
It'll be people
Yeah.
like in the same way, that all the people who were building sort of GeoCities websites way back when are the future web
I was one
developers
of
because they,
those. Yeah,
yeah, and like, and you did it and you learned how to do it and you messed around with the tools.
I did.
The people who are just like, oh, I'm going to see if I can get ChatGPT to write my homework, and 2 years later they built a complex multi-agentic system that's passed a PhD. You're
Yeah.
like, that's the person who's starting the next unicorn.
I keep telling companies when they're like, "Oh, well, this resume was clearly written by ChatGPT. We should throw it out." I'm like, "Actually, what you should do is call them in because it shows that they've found a way around a process that is absolutely built not in their favor and found a way to make it work. Maybe they're who you ought to talk to."
This is something we often find myself talking when we talk to companies about, like, oh, AI strategy. I'm like, the person you really like, your chief AI officer, I'm sorry, is probably not going to be the right person. It's the random 24-year-old who was unbelievably excited that Gemini released a new image model yesterday.
Yes.
That person is the one who's going to like build some cool stuff
Mhm.
that's going to change a part of your business. Because I'll be like, oh, my job is boring. I'll automate bits of it.
Yes. Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly where you start is get rid of the things you hate. What are the things I least want to do this
Yeah.
morning?
Yeah, and those people, like, yeah, and it's fascinating to watch them. Like, I mean, I can tell the story, and then the person who's being referred to is gonna find it very amusing. We've got someone in Invisible who, like, he's someone who came in, he actually came in as a contracted agent, like, doing human data work, and he was excellent, and we brought him on full time. He's now running an MLT AI MLT engineering team because
Wow.
he is an unbelievably good prompt engineer and also good at understanding how to use them correctly. And I had a colleague of mine who I brought in, who's also a very, very, very good ML engineer, had a theory about this. And he was like, yeah, this guy, he was a professional League of Legends player for 3 years. So
Mm,
he got incredibly good at making a huge number of decisions in massive, massive sequence, and also very quickly evaluating trade-offs, which is all you have to do. It's
totally.
like, and like, he's not a trained, like, he hasn't gone through like 20 years of software engineering training, but he understands complex systems and how to handle them in different
Yeah.
ways. And like, it's a non-traditional skill set, but it's proven incredibly valuable because 3 years ago, this job didn't exist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're a person who plays League of Legends and you're really good at it, and or you are a parent of a kid who plays League of Legends, like
I mean,
get your kids in AI.
for clarity, as a lifetime Nintendo fanboy, like, I'm not advocating for League of Legends here, but
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
like, but the general idea, like,
Yeah.
there are non-traditional skills that are incredibly valuable in this world where you're effectively engaging with a model or a interface on top of a model to try and understand the problem, or try and break it down, or try and deconstruct it, or try and, like, sequentially map it and do all sorts of complicated things to set up a set of agents using different tools to do some piece of work. Like, that's not sit down, write Python, hello world.
Well, what would you say, you know, again, kind of pulling us back to Invisible. What are the
I don't think you're so professional. You're like, let's talk about the car. I'm just like, hey, I'm just chatting about League of Legends.
Yeah, we're just having fun. And, but I do have a question I wanna make sure we get in, and that is, what are the most common mistakes you see companies make when they're trying to employ AI, specifically around, like, data strategy?
Okay, I mean, there's a whole heap of things. Like, I think thinking it's step one, talk about AI, step two, question mark, step three, magic. Like, no, it's a very boring set of processes. Um, a classic example. I mean, we really think of it like sort of left to right: data, process, evaluation, agents. You've got to have. If I'm going into your company, I mean, I'm saying, okay, you're an underwriter, you're an insurance company, and I'm saying, hey, how many claims did you play out in the northwest of England in February 2024 that involved flood? If your answer to that is, oh, yeah, fantastic, let me just go and query, done, you're in a good place. If your answer is, lol, how are you going to get AI to do anything? You've got to have a clarity in your data landscape. You've got to understand what truth is, so your models can actually, or whatever the hell, can do stuff. Another great problem is you'll be like, okay, here's your process. You said you got this problem. Like, let's understand your process. Right. What's step one? Oh, step one, I just talk to Dave's team and they do something. Dave's team is the ultimate black box. If you don't know what Dave's team does, how the hell can you get someone else to do that? Or you can train a system to do that. You've got to know what the hell Dave's team does.
That's right.
You've got to understand what your outputs are, what your inputs are. Like, you've got to understand your process. That doesn't necessarily mean mapping out your current process, because another big problem is people are like, oh yeah, my process runs like this. AI-ify it.
No,
And
no,
I'm
no.
like, look,
Mm.
imagine if you'd said to someone in 1900, like, right, I want the best and fastest form of land transport we can get. They'd be like, here's a really fast horse. We'll make it faster. Like, the motor car is a different paradigm. In a similar way, your process might be some Frankenstein's monster of bolt-ons and other things. And actually, you've got to break it down to what's the desired outcome? What are the inputs I need?
Yes.
Then you can actually reimagine it from the ground up and have it ready to be improved. Like, so that's a couple of them. Like, if the data's a mess, forget about going a bit further. If you just don't understand your process, you may need to break it down to an outcomes basis. And then lastly, like, if someone's like, oh, I want this task to be automated, like, okay, here's an example of the task. Was it like, tell me why it was a good task. If they're like, because I like it, that's not an evaluation metric. Thumbs up, thumbs down, not evaluation. You've got to break it down as much as you
Yeah.
can. So it, like, ideally be like, oh yeah, this is a good task because it gives a score of 17 out of 21 on these 21 different classification models.
Yeah.
That that is a much better, that is something you can then use to actually measure if something's done well,
Yeah.
and then start to bring in agents to perform it, because you can evaluate them correctly. Otherwise, yeah,
Right.
again, it's like thumbs up, thumbs down. It's why, like, it's why AI in the enterprise has been such a disaster.
Mm.
ChatGPT is amazing at solving 10,000 problems at once. What enterprise solves 10,000 problems once? No, enterprise solve one problem 10,000 times.
Yes.
You have a very different set of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
And they're different
ChatGPT,
departments, different groups of people.
yeah,
They're all connected in different ways to different tools.
Often siloed, to
yeah.
your earlier point. Yeah.
And so you've got to get agreement on what good looks like, on the right data that's coming, all these different things. It's a very different challenge. And that's why you've got to approach it very systematically. And it's, the human is a key part of it in terms of understanding, in terms of valuation. That's honestly, I think it's weird that we're a company that spends so much time leading to these advances in these models and these products off these models, but actually all it's done is make us realize that our people are even more valuable.
I absolutely love that you mentioned, the need to not AI-ify the process you have, but to maybe toss that process to the side and relearn it from the ground up in a different way. I think that's a really crucial thing, and it's a mistake I see made constantly. Is like, all right, here's our process. Let's go through and step by step build this to replicate that. And it's like, no, you don't necessarily need to do it that way. Sometimes that's highly impractical and results in an over-engineered nightmare.
Well, and that's not to say it's wrong.
Yeah.
There are going to be situations where that's hugely valid, but you've got to look at it coherently with clear eyes.
Yes.
Is there like a magic number of like, once we get it past a certain threshold in terms of our evaluation metrics where it's like okay to deploy it? Like, does your team have some sort of internal way? Is it different for every company?
No, like, because
How do you
ultimately,
handle that?
no, it depends on, like, everything is a trade-off, right? Like, you can, like, if you automate a process that's 30% correct, that could still be valuable, or it
Mm.
could be like detractive, because actually the people to examine the 30% more. Like it's going to come down to cost. It's going to come down to speed. It's going to come down to the SLAs you care about. Like, some people are fine with 80% accuracy on something because it's already higher than it was, and we can just deploy something like that.
Yeah.
For some people, anything less than 99.939 is a disaster.
Mhm.
And so you just got a different approach for each of them. Like, it's
Yeah.
not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, because we keep hearing about evals and certain people are saying, well, you have to have a systematic way to evaluate your outcomes. Otherwise, it's just going to fail. Like there was that study that's like 95% of of enterprise deployments like don't have an ROI because
Yeah.
maybe this or that reason. So
But that's a different kind of eval, right? That's an evaluation of the ROI of the overall program,
you're right.
rather than
You're right.
evaluation on the model output. But I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you're doing a piece of work in a business and you don't know if it's worth it, why are you doing it? But that applies without AI.
Because we need to use AI. It's the future.
But that's one of the biggest problems, is people just like, yeah, like if I just talk about AI for a bit and do some stuff, everything will be great. Like AI is another tool. It's another tool in the tool belt. Like, we talk about the tools in our tool belt. Like, there are not the number of times I've gone to a client and been talking to them and I've been like, honey, you need a regex. Like, you don't need anything more than that. Like, but they're like, I want to use AI. It's like, why? What's this going to add? This is the most tedious, boring process where you're pulling two things. You're doing one predetermined calculation and pushing it to a third source, a third target. Like, a model adds nothing. It's about knowing when to use it. Like, that's what I've always enjoyed working in Invisible, because we were about understanding the problem and then finding the right approach to solve it. I mean, we were
I
always
love
like
that.
that from the start. It's just that the tools we have got better.
So, as someone who builds these tools and trains them, meaning you know them pretty well, what is in your personal AI stack right now? What models and/or tools are you personally using the most right now?
I don't use that much. I am really
Really?
bad. Yeah. Like, I'm a bit of a I tell other people to use them a lot. It's fun messing around on, like, quick prototyping.
Yeah.
Like, Claude Code's fantastic for that. And I mean, honestly, the single biggest thing is I have a notebook here, because I write everything down, and being able to transcribe everything for free is just changed everything, because it means that I can just be like, oh yeah, here are my notes 3 seconds later. But no,
Yeah.
otherwise, no, like, honestly, you should cut that answer, because everyone will be like, he's a fraud. Who's this guy?
Wait. So are you saying that you like will handwrite something and then you'll like take a picture of it and then have it
Yeah,
uploaded? Is that how
handwrite,
you do
take a
it?
picture to transcribe. But like, I
That's awesome.
find my mode of engagement when I am typing versus writing is very different.
Sure.
Like, if I'm in a call, I'm there, like the screen is on and I'm video, but I'm writing, I can't get distracted. I'm writing, I'm engaging. When you're typing, it's very different. You can type something else, you can whatever. Like it just doesn't
Mm,
work for me. And I like scribbling, I like that kind of stuff.
Same.
Like, yeah, this, I mean, we're what, halfway through. This is about here we go, 19th September, and that was here. I've written this much notes
I love it.
wow.
in what, a week.
This is
Yeah.
my little
And
go-to
the
here.
ability.
I have a small one
Yeah.
I carry with me everywhere I go, and
But the ability to then push that into to do
Yeah.
other stuff with it that's incredibly valuable. And
yeah,
like
And you don't have to
that's
take the time
that's
to
a huge,
type
a
it
huge
out.
science
Yeah.
thing. It's such a
Yeah.
prosaic use for it. And like there are fun things that I mean, honestly, one of the other things I just have, like, we've been busy. Like, raising 100 million doesn't happen with no work.
I'll
So
bet it
like,
doesn't.
Right.
I've had as much time as I want to actually just play around. There's so many cool things out there. You could like one of the first things I saw that I was like, okay, this is cool, was when someone created, and it was just like a random student or whatever, created a real-time Babel fish for
Mm.
playing I think it was COD online.
Nice.
Mm.
Because so that they could speak, and they used, like, I think they used Whisper to transcribe, they used ChatGPT to translate, and they used some form of 11 apps model to speak. And they had this close to real-time translation device for flaming someone in South Korea over.
Amazing.
Uh, I mean,
Amazing.
it fried their computer completely. But it's the fact that, like, you can orchestrate those tools to create these cool things. And obviously, there's going to be mistakes. It's not a finished product, and yada yada yada. But you can just try this out, and that's cool. And that's fun. And that means that, like, someone somewhere is going to create something random because they have this idea that'll be like, oh yeah, wow.
If you could automate one part of your job with perfect AI, but you had to keep one part completely human forever, what would you choose for each?
Job, not life.
Either.
You can
Oh, I mean,
answer either. Yeah.
life, vacuuming. Vacuuming is Satan's task.
I mean, we
Like,
have Roomba. We've had it for years.
yeah, but
Where are you at?
I live in a small 2-bedroom flat with lots of stairs, and
Mm.
like, no, I don't. No, you Americans with your 4,500 square feet on one floor, like, you're having a great time. What would I keep human? People management.
Mm.
That's a good
You
call.
like
We need that
you,
to stay human.
yeah, you want to manage a team. You've got to understand them. You got to understand their needs. You
Yeah.
got to understand their what. You got to understand their drivers. Your job is to enable them, etc. That's pretty important. Like, and if people are trying to like automate that away, they're awful managers and shouldn't be allowed anywhere near management.
Yeah.
I think in terms of automated, I mean, the note transcription thing was one thing. No, I think prototyping. I think the ability
Yeah.
to turn an idea into something that is like 95% fidelity, like super
Yeah.
quickly, so you can just start to experiment, is insanely valuable.
It is.
So I'd
Couldn't
say
agree
like
more.
just progressing further down that, because it lets you just avoid that like frustrating idea, like the boring part of the implementation stage after ideation.
If we're gonna start off with automating, yeah, I'm definitely kind of leaning the same direction as Casper here. Like, I want all of my household chores to just be managed. I want the house to just be clean, the dishes to be done, the laundry to be in the closet. All of those things are what I want. As far as what I want to keep, I think it's ideation of things. I really
Mhm.
enjoy thinking. I really enjoy learning and diving into things I don't know. And I think if I have the ability to have an idea and then somehow go automate helping me spin it up quickly, in a way that works for my ADHD brain,
Yeah.
that keeps me on tasks and shows me, yes, you can do that. I think some combination there would be really valuable for me.
I mean, just piggybacking off the back, one thing I have quite strong opinions about, which annoys some of my colleagues, like, I think acts of communication, it's important to keep them human. Like,
Mm.
when I receive, like, when someone's like, "Oh yeah, can you give me some I need some questions on this," and I get a list that's clearly generated by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
is, have you thought about this? Like, yes, you can generate, but then edit, adjust,
Yeah.
like make it relevant, because I think there's going to be a premium on that kind of, and people will get, unless the models get better and better and better, which I will see, people would a premium on that kind of engagement.
Mhm.
And if you're talking to a client or someone's talking to you and it's clear that they haven't put in the effort, that's going to be a big turnoff.
It is. You can tell.
Yeah.
How about
I
you,
think
Grant?
mine is
What's your pair?
mine is probably like, I don't know what this has technically called. And it might be the opposite of what Caspar is saying. So hot take.
Oh, interesting.
Communication, like when people ask you to do something that's like a one-off task, I would love to automate that. Like if somebody's just messaging you like, hey, could you update this? And I read a newsletter, like if you could update this
No, I
advertisement in
think
the
that's
newsletter,
different. I think that's different.
like
Yeah,
I
I
would
know.
love
I
to
think
just automatically
if
do it.
it's a non-interesting update and it's just like a busy task, I agree. I'm talking more about the like, we have had a human interaction and now I need to send a follow-up to that. I should give a
Right.
human follow-up.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I think because I go back and forth on what I would keep human forever, but it probably should be like like meetings. As much as I want to automate meetings, like you probably should not automate meetings.
Yeah.
Maybe you have less of them because communication offline async is less automated, but you should still meet with your team
Yeah.
in person.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Because people are the constant throughout all this.
You're right.
They're the fundamental part.
Well, Caspar, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fascinating, and it's just been a fun chat, honestly. We've been all over the place, and I think in some great ways. Where can people go to learn more about invisible technologies and what the work you all are doing?
If you go to invisibletech.ai, you will find out all about us, and I would recommend visiting there because we're doing some interesting stuff with a lot of exciting clients in a lot of different spaces.
I agree.
That's awesome.
I agree. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on the Neuron Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and check out the Neuron newsletter at theneuron.ai for daily AI insights. Until next time, though, farewell, humans.